This is Christy Love, and you are listening to Tanya Tate presents Skinfluencer Success podcast.
This is Tanya Tate. Skinfluencer Success.
You are listening to Tanya Tate presents Skinfluencer Success. How can religion and sex exist together? Some people are afraid to say those words in the same sentence. My guest is a webcam model, adult actress, and the first active porn star in history. She grew up in a very conservative home, with her mother being Korean and father being a conservative Christian minister. She went from living a sheltered life to making a career in the adult industry, where her life has radically changed for the better. Has religion or other people's beliefs impacted the way you feel or view your own personal intimate activities? No matter our sexual preferences, one thing that we need to know is that God loves every single one of us unconditionally. Welcome, Christy Love, to the Skinfluencer Success podcast.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
I am so excited as well. It's like amazing that I've got you on. And I was talking to one of my friends, Max Phils, and we were sitting there and we were talking, and I'd done a shoot with him. And I said, "Oh, come on then, Max. So, which other MILFs do you work with?" Because I like to see who he works with. So I like to, see who's around, and so I like have a little look and see who's shooting, and then he said, "And Christy Love," and then he was like, "And she's a pastor," and I was like, "What? A pastor doing porn? What?" So
Yes.
that's how I found out about you. So I thank you so much for being here with us right now on the podcast.
Yes, I'm so like blessed to be here. And I know that Max, we did, I think, a shoot too together, and he's like, "You got to meet this girl." And he kept talking about you. And then when he texted me, he's like, "Can I give her your number?" I said, "Yes, please do."
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for letting him share it. So I wanted you to introduce yourself. Who is Christy Love, and how did you get started in the industry?
Yes. How can I describe myself as a woman who is passionate, loving, and caring for people with another naughty side? I am also a pastor. And so I know that's very odd, but my husband and I, after we graduated from Bible school, we moved to San Diego. At the time, our funds were running out, and I was online looking for a job, and the first thing I saw on Craigslist was webcamming. And I thought at the time, well, this sounds fun. I could work at home and make some money. Wow, we were church planning at the time. And I thought this was a great idea. We did get caught, so we did shut down our church in the beginning.
Oh,
Yes, yeah. So,
so
and then,
so so hold on. Let me go. So you did Bible school, and
yeah.
you graduated. You moved to San Diego, and you're looking online for something to do. You start webcamming, and then someone found out.
Yes, from our
How
church. Yeah.
were you a pastor at the time, or were you an attendee at the church?
No, we were church planning at the time.
Church planning.
Oh, yeah. Church planning is like starting a church from scratch. Yes, yeah. So we had it out of our house, and we just gathered people, and and then we had church just with a mission of hoping to move into a building and actually have a full-on service.
And so somebody that was attending the church at your house found you online. What were
Yes.
they do? What were they doing online to find you?
I don't know. It was mortifying because they recorded me and then sent the video to all our church members.
so now you're trying to start your church up, and it takes, like, you starting a new project from scratch. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of commitment, and then suddenly, like, this spanner's just being thrown in the works. So it was like, how were you feeling at that time, yourself and your husband? Like, what things were going through your head?
Yeah, that was it was the first time of my life that I wanted to, end my life and commit suicide. I was the lowest I've ever been in my life. And I just, because I knew that I was called to ministry, and I knew that being in the adult industry was just a period of just to make money, just a period of survival. And so the moment I felt like that was taken away, I felt like my purpose was taken away. And I felt like, if I have no purpose, then why am I here on earth? And that was a dread, like a very, very dreadful, horrifying time for me. We never left our faith. We stopped the church. We started attending another church. I kept having this craving because I loved performing. I loved webcamming, and I loved my fans. And I told my husband, what do you think about going back into it? And to be honestly truthful, the money was very nice too.
Mm.
And so we just kind of talked and said, we're not in ministry anymore. So why don't we get back into it? And, or not him, only me. And I said,
Just you.
okay, yeah, I would like to. I would definitely like to. And so I went back into webcamming. Someone from that church that we were attending found out and then kicked us out of the church. And,
Mm.
yeah. And then we stopped going to church for a long time, but we never left
Yeah.
our faith. And we went to another church. And from there, that church accepted us, gave us so much grace. And a little
Yeah.
bit before COVID, we had a friend said, hey, why don't you start a church? And we were dabbling like, no, no. I mean, we always knew we were going to start again, but we just were enjoying this season that we're in. I just remember seeing people on Twitter saying how they're depressed, how they're filled with a lot of anxiety, how some of our co-stars had tried to commit suicide.
Mhm.
And I just mentioned to my husband, I said, man, I wish there was a place for people in our industry that could really receive healing. And I mentioned even the church wouldn't accept them. And
Mm.
so then from there, we just kind of prayed about it. And that's where we said, let's start a church for people who wouldn't feel welcomed in the church. So
Mm.
everyone who the church would reject, let's do it. And we're non-judgmental. Our whole church knows that, we have an open marriage. I still am
Yeah.
active in the industry. Yeah, it's really a non-judgmental place.
I love that. I know we're going to go into a little bit more deeper about the church and sex. I do want to go into that deeper later on. But it's that, we go to church, and you and your husband, very deep, very, very religious, very big believers, and giving to the community. I'm sure that you were big community members when you were at the church. And
Yes.
to have someone say, well, based on what you are doing outside of church with yourself in your own home, you are not welcome. And it just makes me feel really sad that people can be so judgmental. And I'm so glad that you and your husband, it's like you kept praying, you kept finding a purpose. And that must have took something to come from being the lowest of the low when the first church, you know when you got rejected the first time, and you was at the lowest point in your life, to be like,
Yes.
where are we going to go from there? And to keep the faith, and to know that something that feels right inside, to keep going with it, even though people are basically rejecting you and looking down upon you. It's a big thing, Christy.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things you sometimes have to go through the pain to really find your purpose. And I felt like I'm so grateful for all the pain, for all the hate from people, the judgment, because I feel like I'm so much stronger. And I feel like I'm in a place where I can really love people where they're at instead of having like these the like a going through a lens of judgment. So I'm grateful for all everything I've went through.
It does is, you know, some people are like, oh, we went through this and it was so bad, but I have similar beliefs in you, in that if you didn't go down that painful path, if you didn't experience that pain and those things that you felt like everything was going wrong, how would you be able to learn, and how would you be able to come out the other side and be like, you know, if you didn't have that happen to you, you wouldn't be where you are now, you wouldn't be as successful as where you are now. And
Mhm.
what would you be doing? Would you be still trying to hide, like hide your secret?
Yes,
It's
yeah.
Is it really liberating to be able to still have your faith and be very open with it, and for people to know that, hey, this is also the other job that I do? Is it very liberating?
Yes, it is so much because I used to hide it, and I dealt with so much shame, and I would cry because I was like, I feel so shameful. But then the moment I just said, you know what? I don't care what people think. I'm just going to be me because I enjoy what I
Mm,
do. Like, who doesn't? And the reality is, if anyone could get paid to do what we do, they would totally do it. It's like everyone enjoys what we do. It's just
exactly.
most people do it behind, closed doors. So I was like, I love what I do, but I still love Jesus. So I just
Mm,
kind of felt like, you know what? I'm just going to let it out because people were gossiping too much when I was trying to hide. Um,
yeah.
and I said, you know what? I don't care if you gossip. I'm just going to tell you how it is. This is who I am. You like me, you like me. You don't, you don't. But at least now I just feel like I can be me. And I felt like I came to a place where I really loved who I am. Instead of hiding it, I felt like I didn't come to a place where I felt like I could love who I was because there was a secret I was holding. So it was
Yeah.
very, very liberating for me just to be blah.
Let's go back. You know, when you were growing up, you were in a very strict upbringing. So tell me
Yeah.
about your parents and growing up, and what was that like?
Yes. My parents have always been so wonderful, so loving, just phenomenal parents. But coming from, I don't know if you know anything about the Asian culture, but my mom
You
is
can
really strict.
educate me.
And Asian people are they're very big on appearance and how the family looks and having this perfect, family. And so I just felt like that was having that kind of life. I felt like I couldn't really be me. Like I couldn't mess up because if I messed up, then I would feel like I wasn't good enough because I didn't meet these expectations. And so
Mm,
that is where I felt like just I couldn't really explore who I was. I had to,
yeah.
I would go to school, I would go to church, and then I would stay at home, and that's how I needed to be. So that made me feel very sheltered, and I couldn't discover who I really was. But besides that, my parents are always uplifting, very loving, very heavily involved in the church. They had me involved, um, but that was my negative part, is just feeling so confined of having
Mhm.
to fake uh, being perfect, having to live that expectation.
Yeah. And was your father a Christian minister as well?
Yes, yeah, he is a Methodist pastor, and probably one of the most non-judgmental, loving dad pastor ever. Like you could go up to him and talk to him about anything. He's very, very just loving. Yes. So he
Yeah,
is a
that's
Methodist pastor.
nice. Nice. So it's, you're growing up. Was it just you growing up? Like, did you have any siblings?
It's an interesting question because I am my mom's only child. So my mom and dad are married and still married today. But before my dad was married be- to my mom, he had a couple wives before, and so I have half siblings, but we were never close.
Yeah. So it was, you have felt like an only child.
Yes, yeah. So pretty much I grew up as the only child.
Yeah. I've got a lot of brothers and sisters as well. So.
Oh,
Well, if you ask me how many I've got quite a few. So
wow. Okay, over 10.
no, not over
Oh,
10.
okay.
I always thought when I was growing up, there was me, I was the oldest, and then a brother and a sister. So I always thought there's three of us. But then my dad had me, and then he had other children. So I guess when it's older, it's nice to kind of meet your other brothers and sisters.
Yes, yes. Oh, yes.
um, though, yeah. So then you kind of this innocent religious girl, and you're feeling trapped, you're feeling confined, you're trying to be perfect, fitting in. But then at some point, you spoke about um, starting your church and doing your Bible studies. But I want to know, like, at what point did you turn to like look at porn or use porn, or at what point did you think to yourself, actually, there's more to life than studying the Bible and being this perfect girl for my parents?
That took me a while because I don't know if I could say this, but I was molested as a child.
Oh my
So
goodness.
for me, having any kind of sexual in like contact, I felt like it was painful. And so I feel like
Yeah.
people who have dealt with any type of sexual trauma either go super like sexual, or they go the opposite way where they absolutely hated it. And I
Yeah.
was the person who I hated having any type of intercourse, which, was not good for my husband. And
Mm.
so because I went online and I saw this, webcamming job, and I thought, you know what, I could work at home, I can make good money, even though I was not a sexual person. I said, you know what, I want to do it. And
Mm.
I found out that I did not know anything when I was webcamming, and people thought that was so exciting because I didn't understand anything. And to be honest, if you aren't into it, then you don't do as well as a webcam model. So I had to learn
Mm-hmm.
to enjoy my body, and I had to
Mm-hmm.
um, learn to watch porn. And that's where my journey came. And that's why for me, I feel like being in the industry has brought so much healing, because if I'd never
Yeah.
gotten into the industry, maybe I would still wouldn't enjoy having any type of intercourse. But because I forced myself, now I have freedom in that, and now I can finally enjoy it. For me, the industry is not for everyone, but for me, I felt like it was very healing and um, very important for me to go through.
Yeah. It's, people outside our industry will be listening to this. We are the people that listen to this, they're going to be our fans, obviously going to listen. Other content creators will listen, and other people might listen that are thinking about, hey, sex and porn and God and religion. I need to listen to this as well. But there'll be people that'll be sitting there now and be thinking, well, hold on, this trauma happened to her when she was younger, and now she's now in the industry. And I think there's a lot of narrative that goes on outside the industry that's like, oh, people, they're in the porn industry and they have all these issues, but no one ever says, actually I did have issues, but I was able to liberate and find freedom by exploring, by actually porn giving me the tools to do that. That's a really interesting story. I think you've done really well. And I love this because, you said when we got back to talking about your church, and, you're on to the third church, and now you're offering a place for people that are in the industry, people that are sex workers, and of course, everybody else as well, because you don't exclude anybody. But
Mhm.
I love this is that people can come to you, and know that if they are listening to this, if anyone's listening to this and you do have any kind of like trauma when it comes to sex, um, you've been there, and you're a pastor, and if someone, I'm just thinking, is this like an invitation if anyone wants to come and
Oh,
be a part of your church and get to talk with you?
yes, yes, absolutely.
Because you understand. Imagine, like, I mean, I've been to church. I go to church. I've been to church, and I guess a lot of people have been to some kind of religious place, whether they continue it or not. But think back, if you are listening right now and you have been to a place of religion, even if you've just gone and visited a cathedral, um,
Yeah.
would you ever think to yourself, actually, I'll go up to the clergy, or, the rabbi, or the priest, or whoever's there, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to tell them all about these different things that have happened? And no one's going to want to do that because I'll tell you now, like, most people would feel too scared to do it. They'd feel they're not going to understand, they're going to be judged. And that's not the case for you.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear people reach out and say that, you know, maybe they're ministers and they're struggling with homosexuality, or they're ministers and, maybe they're out having an affair and they're too scared to go talk to anyone. It's cool to have people feel like, you know what, I heard about you guys. I want to talk to you and tell you my struggles, and have the confidence that we won't judge them. It's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's just amazing. We're going to get deep soon, but I just want to ask you just a few more questions about you. You started the webcamming, and now you've progressed. When did you start? The other platforms, start putting your feet on the other platforms and trying them out. How did that come about?
Yes. So I started doing really well as a webcam model, and I just kind of, said, I want to take my career to the next level. And I brought it up to my husband, and he is he's not insecure with himself. He's very confident in himself. So when I brought it up to him, he was like, well, if you want to do it, I'm going to support whatever you feel like you want to do. And I said, yeah. So then I went on Craigslist because I didn't know how to get into adult film, and I saw this ad, and happens to be for net video girls. So I landed on a professional shoot through an ad, and I got in the door. And the talent that was a male talent also was an agent. And so I said, and he asked me, hey, do you want to get in? And I said, yes, I do. I just don't know the process. And he took me into his agency. But I
Right.
only stayed with him for a year and then moved on to the one I'm with for 6, 7 years.
So that was like the step in,
Yes.
applying to the ad, and I guess that's how it was done, quite a few years ago. But going from there, and of course, then the other platforms come out, the premium social media platforms come out. And, I, of course, took the step, and I did the same. I was making movies for production companies. And then, you know, I got pregnant, I had a baby, and I took a little bit of time off. And then OnlyFans was there, and I was like, okay, what's this about? And so was that for you like a natural progression to see the platforms come in? And
Yes.
were your fans asking? Were they like, Chrissy, are you on this
Uh,
platform?
Yeah, so it was a good shock for my webcam fans when they first came out. When I first came out with my first film, and they were so excited for me. And as time progressed, it just got like so much more exciting.
I do. You know what? I think I'm going to bring in a very special guest as well. That's going to be with you. Stephen is your husband, and
Yeah.
he's your perfect partner. And I'd love him if he could join us, as if by magic.
How's it going?
Hi, Stephen. Thank you for offering to come on today. You know, you're a wonderful couple, and I thought, you know, we're gonna. I've got a lot of questions that I want to ask, and I'm sure that people are going to be wanting to ask when it comes to religion and porn and sex, and I really want to get your opinion, and I wanted this to be like an open discussion because
Yeah.
people are going to be listening right now and be thinking, oh, God and sex. And, you know, Christy, you briefly mentioned it before, you know, there's a lot of shame around it. And like yourselves being ousted from the church because of the things that you were doing in your personal life as two consenting adults that are very true to your faith and very religious. And people didn't like that. So I want to kind of talk a little bit more about that. But Stephen, introduce yourself because I've just pulled you in.
Hi. Yes, I'm Stephen Dela Cruz, the husband to the Christy Love. We've been married now for 14 years, dating altogether for 18 years. I'm a hypnotherapist professionally and a life coach and business strategist. So I am not in the industry.
That's
So,
they'd all be asking. Actually, that was one of the questions that I asked Christy earlier. I was like, "Is he?" And she said no. And I said, "Oh, okay. I hope I didn't offend you."
you don't want to see this naked. Anyways, yeah. So but I love I love her so much that she's such a bubbly person, and so I said she came up to me and asked me about this aspect. In the beginning, it was like, oh, interesting, like
Mhm.
that she wanted to get in the webcamming for money. We were really hurting. 08, 09, that whole economy crash really affected us huge. And so we
Mhm.
moved to San Diego in 2011. And that was where literally our parents were paying for our rent. That's how bad it was. And so it was so bad. So she said, hey, I'm going to do this. And I'm like, okay, like, it was an interesting ride. Let's just say that. A lot of ups and downs, but definitely got to say the industry has definitely made her so much more stronger.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Christy, you've been through a lot, and I mean, I didn't know any of this before. You know, I just thought, "Oh, stop, Pastor." I'm like, I want to be one, and I love that I can give like. There's a lot of podcasts that are out there, and you know, they want to talk about different things that are going on and trauma and yeah, okay, trauma happens, but I want to know like what happens after. How do you get out of that trauma? Like I focus on all the positive things and the things that you can attain after, and
Yes.
it's amazing. So Stephen, so you are both pastors. Is that your official title?
Yeah, it's interesting because official title, yes, but the word pastor is never actually in the Bible. That's a whole different subject, though. But yes, we are the pastors of the church.
And so tell us a little bit about your church. It's online, it's in person, it's
We do have a small group online, but a small group in person, about 12 folks. Anyone's welcome to come in San Diego, but we're in San Diego. But online, we'll have anywhere between 4 to 7,000 weekly attendance online.
oh wow.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
it
I
is.
know,
It
right?
is. So come join us.
Do you know what? I'm gonna come online to one of your next online sessions. When do you do it?
Sunday evenings.
Sunday evenings. What
Yes,
time?
7 p.m.
7 p.m. West Coast time because you're in San Diego.
Correct. Yes, San Diego
Yeah.
Pacific Time.
And then is it on your YouTube channel? Is that
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we have an online on YouTube as well. Yes.
okay? Great. I'm gonna come. So I want to come.
Yeah, maybe we'll have you come and preach one day.
I mine's a different kind of preaching, but I've got to say this: a lot of the things that I say, like I like to touch, like before this video, like this is a podcast, this is your episode, but before this video goes on, I actually do like a little audio, so I'll talk about stuff. So I'll pick like little subjects, so they're kind of standalone subjects, and they're actually could be applicable to life with or without faith,
Yeah.
because it's and I feel that I'm called again to share things. And
Mm.
but I hear a lot of things because I listen to good people, and I
Yeah,
hear a lot of things, and I think they have a lot of good things to say. And I love different pieces of the messages. I want to share them,
for
and
sure.
and like, yeah, maybe I will one day.
Yeah, come on out.
I look back, I have all my notes from it. I'll be like, okay, what subject might they want to listen to? This is an open invite for a porn star to go to your church. And I'm just like, it's not going to be nervous because they're not, are they going to know that I'm a porn star? Does it matter? It won't matter. Does it
No,
matter?
our people are so non-judgmental. I'm very good friends with a lady, Forbes Riley. She's the QVC $2.5 billion woman. She said to me, "You're gonna have a Jew atheist come and preach. That's like share positivity, and I'll say the prayer at the very end. You come and just share." So we have it's a very the biggest thing is this is that our goal in our church. Here's our mission statement: to help people discover their purpose, live in power, and live out their God-given potential. Purpose, power, potential. So as long as you can come in and help us find our purpose, live in power, and live out our God-given potential, let's go.
I love it. I love it. And it's so, going back to that sex and God, like
Mm-hmm.
sex and God, like I'm saying it. I'm saying it right now. No big deal. But for some people, saying sex and God in the same sentence, that is not okay. But how the people that are listening, how does God and sex fit together?
I believe God created sex, and it was His intent, and so we as humans have just made it such a taboo thing. Technically, it's a Western thing. It's more a Western thing. In Asian cultures, it's a normal thing over there. Is over here in America, it's like, oh, that's completely illegal. But over there, it's kind of like it's part of relaxation. So it's like it's
That's interesting.
so keep it in mind is that here in the Western world, we are the ones who made sex such a taboo thing in the Western world, where in other cultures, just like it's just part of life as much as it is part of eating. But here in
Yeah.
Western world, we've made it such a big taboo thing, and so yeah,
And people should know it's not taboo. I guess there are some strict upbringings, whether it's religious or just strict in general, or just very regimented, that are saying, like, parents or people that are bringing you up are saying to you, sex is taboo, and it's you shouldn't bring yourself to the be intimate with yourself. And certain religions, it's sex for creation only, it's not sex for personal pleasure. So what can we say to those people that are listening right now?
you only have one life. Why not enjoy it? And sex is part of that, right? Is we all have our cravings, our we all have our. I professionally, like I said, I'm a hypnotherapist by profession, and so there are certain chemicals in our brain that we need to release those specific happy hormones. You know what I mean? The dopamine, the
Endorphins.
serotonin, the endorphin. So the four different chemicals we have to release that in our brains for us to survive. And so sex is part of the chemical hormones in our brain that we need to be happy to live life. So
Yeah.
understand it's just part of our nature. If God, or whatever it is you call God, didn't want us to have this craving, then why did he create it? Why did he put it as part of our being? If we, whatever belief you have, if we are created by the Almighty, whoever Almighty is for you,
Mhm.
why did he give us this craving and need and not let us have it? So
Mhm.
does that make sense? So, like, for me, it's just like, oh, you have this craving, but you can't have it. That's just torture. This is not hell. This is earth. You know?
It's like we're sitting here now, me and you, Christy. It's like we help people, and in terms of we provide a service, really.
Yes.
A lot of
Yes.
fans, male, female fans, they come
Hmm.
to us and we help them. And
Yes.
like Christy, has any fans ever come to you and said, like, I feel guilty for this sexual experience? Have any fans ever said that to you?
Oh, yeah, I get them all the time. I just, we preach that, well, one, guilt is not from God. God, can bring conviction and correction, but guilt is not of God. Um, and we always preach about, well, that is between you and God. So if you feel that, you go to go to whoever God you believe and ask for healing, or ask for, I don't know, Stephen, you're better explaining this.
Yeah, it's the thing is this is that sex, right, is the aspect of guilt because it's bad, right? That we're talking about bad. But if you think
Mhm.
about a knife, a knife, it can be both bad, stab someone, kill someone, or good, have the knife be used for open heart surgery and save a life, right?
Mhm.
Or to cut up vegetables and the
That's
meat, and
healthy.
right? And so it's the aspect of a knife is just a knife. It's not good or bad. It's the aspect of it's just a knife. Sex is just sex. It
Mhm.
doesn't have to. If you go and have unconsensual sex, okay, that is bad. Let's just
Yeah.
everyone agrees. But if
Yeah.
it's consensual, it's legal, it's
Legal.
pleasurable, it's loving, it's passionate. This makes sense. It's like everyone is getting their fulfillment, right?
Mhm.
What is sex? Sex is if it's one sided, that's selfish. That's wrong. If it's both receiving pleasure, we're both serving each other.
Mhm.
Multiple people, where multiple people are serving, and we're all serving one another. If it's only one sided, then okay, that's wrong. That's abuse. But in hindsight, sex is just sex. A knife is
Mhm.
just a knife. It's our intent and our heart and our character and who we are. So are there people who abuse a knife? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are there people who don't use sex for the proper reason? Absolutely. But in the sense here that we're talking about, sex is neither good nor bad. It's
Yeah.
good because it's a fulfills a need, and as long as everyone's consensual, we're all serving one another.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, why it's like why are there some sectors of religion, and we're not just talking Christianity. We are Christians that are sitting here right now, but people of all faiths and people of non-faiths are also listening. But why is it that religion? Why do they really want to suppress that sexual desire? Why, like, why do they do it?
Again, I believe it's a Western thing. I believe it's more of the aspect of, it really comes down to it is it's an intimacy aspect, right? Into me, you see. So it's the aspect of seeing right through the person. You're having sex, you're fully naked, having no holds bar, giving one to another, and so it's one of those things where it's like I believe that people and culture in general are very fearful of being seen who they really are. So it's an authentic issue. And religion, unfortunately, traditional religion, it's
Mhm.
very two faced. Here's my facade. I'm not going to show the church who I really am. I'm not going to share with my fellow religious people who I am. My family and I are perfect. We pray every day. But then when they close the door and they go home, they're all yelling at each other, hating each other. So
Mhm.
religion in general is just a big facade for a lot of people, and that's the reason why they put up this front, right? It's
Mhm.
funny. It's so funny because it's like so many of these churches are saying, "Oh, anti-sex, only have sex with marriage," and da da da. Da, don't at all, making it such a taboo thing. But in reality, a lot of these preachers, I've been on other podcasts, and I asked them, "Let me ask you this question: how often do you watch porn?" They go, "What?" That's not the question here. No, no, I want to know how often do you watch porn? How often
Yeah.
do you masturbate? How often? And they don't want to answer that, but yet they want to bring me and Christy on their podcast talking about our sin, but not face their own, and because it's a
Yeah.
big facade. And so I'll call out podcasters or preachers who want to have us on and talk about this stuff. And in reality, they're probably the ones who are the worst at that because they're keeping it such a secret.
Do you know what? I have a publicity company, Star Factory PR, and we've represented many different talent and companies, over the years. And at one time we had a girl, and she's called Leah Alexis, and she's still around in the industry. Lovely, lovely, lovely girl that she is. And she did a lot of hard scenes, and she did stuff for kink.com. And if anyone have seen any of that, it's really hard BDSM. And something came out, and piracy was kind of getting going, and there was a lot of torrented sites, and someone or some company or somewhere they did this like check, and they said, oh well, the Vatican, these are the 10 most downloaded movies by the Vatican. So the Vatican is the Pope,
Yeah,
the heart of the Catholic religion,
yeah,
and
yeah.
the people that are within the Vatican are like employees of, the Pope, basically. And it was different movies. It was Hollywood movies, and thou shall not steal. Downloading them, not paying for them. Okay, get to like I think it was like number 5. Leah Lexus and Chrissy Lynn whipped ass. Kink.com. And
Wow.
we were like, whoa.
Oh my gosh.
And it's really extreme. It's very, very extreme. And so these people, these holier than thou, been sitting there in the Vatican. We don't steal. We're the whatever their celibacy
Right.
rules are. Like they know what they are. But I don't think it should cover them sitting in the Vatican on Vatican's internet downloading porn movies, like really
Oh my
extreme.
gosh.
And it went viral. It was
Oh my
massive.
gosh. And that's the reason why we created this church, right? This church that we have, it's a Christian church, online community, is that we want to create a place of non-hypocrisy and saying, look,
Mm,
here's who I am, here's who she is. We
yeah.
love each other, we love you, and let's just find faith, hope, and love together without the
Yeah.
judgment, without the condemnation, without there's a friend of ours here in San Diego. He was pastoring a church for over 30 years, grew to
Mm,
7,000 members, and one slip up, had a sleeping with a secretary, automatically done.
gone.
Everything that he built was done. And it's like, does it discount his ability to lead, his love for people? No, he got horny, but then because of that, he got disqualified. I don't get that. That just doesn't make sense.
Mm,
It's a human need. And so as long as we can be upfront with each other, just be authentic of who you are. And so, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's not the first time that someone that's running a church has gone and either been on the side, you know. And I'm going to bring it up because, like, probably a lot of people don't talk about it. Coming from England and the UK and Ireland, there's a very big influence of Ireland, and Ireland is, I went round Ireland with a camper van, and I made a movie, the Tanya Tate Sex Tour of Ireland. And it was kind of really liberating for the people of Ireland, for some of the people in Ireland, for me to go around and now suddenly they could talk about sex, like Tanya Tate and sex and these guys. And it was front page of the newspaper. Like it was shocking. I would come round and I was like enticing all these guys to come and romp with me. Well, actually, there was an application process, and there was backwards and forwards communication. And on the day, you had to turn up of your own accord. You didn't get kidnapped. You turned up. Here's the location. Then we go. Then you sign the forms, and And there's a lot of process, but I was that harlot woman that came around Ireland, and
Mm,
because it's a very religious country.
Yeah.
um but I love that I could liberate some of the people and be like, you know what, let's talk about sex, because Tanya Tate was going around, and it's interesting. And but at the same time, there's a big, I don't know what it's like for the US, because I didn't grow up here, but in the UK and in Ireland, it's documented.
Mm,
So this is documented that a priest would do something very untoward, very illegal, involving children, right? And
mm.
they would be moved to a completely different parish. And
wow.
Wow.
it's it's taken like years, and there's a lot of compensation claims going in, and there's apologies, and there's documented stuff. But this is, if you can read it, BBC website, trusted news. And it's to for the priests and the people that some of them are so contained, and
Mm,
yet here they are doing very extreme, very stressful, very disgusting things with
Mm,
people that don't really have a say.
mm,
People, you know,
mm,
someone younger. What you say, the priest says, many years ago, whatever the priest said,
yeah.
and it's very shocking. But I
mm,
just needed to get those points out there, because people that are listening, people are not holier than thou.
Right.
mm,
Right. Right.
You know, there's a lot of expectations in religion that people are man and wife and performing duties, and this is the way that it is. But what about people that have unconventional relationships? What about people in like the LGBT community? Like, how, like, I'm sitting here now, I've got two pastors in front of me. What does God think about people in the LGBT community?
Okay. We were having lunch with someone yesterday in that community and asking us about this whole thing of how can I justify my faith with being gay? She's a lesbian. It's interesting. I'm speaking from the Christian Bible. When Jesus heals the Roman centurion's servant, the scripture that says the Roman soldiers tells Jesus, "Just say the word, and my servant shall be healed." And then Jesus praised the Roman soldier in front of the disciples. Look at this man of his great faith. It is done. He's healed. And that very moment, he got healed. That actually, if you look at historically, the Roman centurion man who had the servant was a gay lover boy.
Mm.
Jesus never mentioned anything about their homosexual relationship. He
Mhm.
was a gay lover boy of that Roman soldier. Never out of Jesus' mouth talks about homosexuality.
Mhm.
And so actually the words homosexuality or any of those aspects is not in the original Greek Aramaic in the Bible. We as a Western culture, or at least I think it was when we printed the Bible, we miscalculated some words. So that the word love, there are 5 different words for love, right? And so homosexuality was not in the original wording in the original Bible. So what does God think about homosexuality? I believe God is just, there's this whole aspect of people saying like, oh, you know um God doesn't like gays because, I mean, well, I don't know what the arguments are really. They're talking about like the Old Testament stuff, whatever else. But again, like I said, it's the aspect of Jesus healed the centurion man, and whenever Paul references homosexuality in the New Testament, Paul references homosexuality along with gluttony, drunkenness, and all those stuff. Whenever he mentions all of that in Romans chapter 4, he then says at the very end of it, "But thanks be to God for Jesus Christ." For even
Mhm.
though we have all those negative sins, they are sins. He calls them sins, whatever else. He goes, Jesus forgave us all. We're all
Mhm.
under grace. And so, what we preach here is that the Bible says when God looks at Christy, he doesn't look at Christy. He sees Jesus. And that's what we preach. And that's what the Bible says.
Mm.
That's what we firmly believe. So we believe that, you know what, even if, say, for example, Christy is no longer doing porn, guess what? She's still human. She's
Yeah.
still going to have sin. She's still going to have whatever flaws that not everyone agrees with, whatever it is. No matter what, we're all going to have disagreements because we all have our own lives. We all have our own flaws. No one's perfect. And God knows we're not perfect. That's
Yeah.
what I want to say. It's called grace. And
Mm.
so I want to, for all your listeners out there, I want to say is give yourself permission to have grace on yourself and grace for others. It's funny because the most judgmental people out there are the ones who are the most sinful. They're just hiding their own shame. And
Yeah.
so, you know, I'm a hypnotherapist, so I know the psychology of it is that people who have so much like anti-gay, I
Yeah.
think they know their own little homosexuality themselves.
Well, we've seen that, haven't we, before with like politicians when they're like so anti, and suddenly the stories in the news of them with a guy,
Yeah,
a male politician with a guy, and you're like, oh, that's why you were so anti about it, because you were trying to hide your secret.
absolutely, and we see it all the time. So let's have grace for ourselves and have grace for each other.
Yeah. And, you know, we are all loved by God, by Jesus, by the universe, by whatever creator that you believe in. We are
Mhm.
all loved by them unconditionally.
Yes.
Like, that is such a big statement. You know,
Yes.
you're sitting here now. You're saying, what does God see when He looks at Christy? He sees Jesus, but I also see a big heart. Like I
Oh,
see the love as well. You know, and I know that's your name, and I'm not playing on your name. I see love, and I think that's what other people should look at when they look at different people. Doesn't matter what religion, what politic beliefs, whatever personal beliefs that they have, what they do for a job, their sexual preferences. They should look at that person and see them for being a human, for being a good human. And if they're not a good human in their eyes, well, maybe it's just their opinion. You know, we're all on
mm,
a journey.
yes.
You
Absolutely.
know, we're all.
Absolutely.
Is
Yes.
is is there anything that, like, is there any one message that you really, that we've said a lot of messages, but is there any one message that you want to end it with to let everyone really know about religion and God?
And I can speak for our Christian faith, is the aspect of God sent Jesus to die on the cross because he knows you're going to mess up. And he knows that we all have flaws. He knows that we're never going to be perfect. So just have grace over yourself and understand that we're humans and that we're not gods and we're not trying to be perfect. So stop trying. Embrace your flaws, embrace who you are. And here's the thing, one more thing really quick, is that a hypnotherapist, all of our actions and our habits are all based on our past experiences. So Christy she's reacting to what she's experienced with her